Most people think a root vegetable is automatically one of the safest foods on the table. It grows in the ground, it looks natural, it shows up in soups, stews, roasts, and home cooking, so it feels comforting, familiar. But after 50, and especially after 60, that assumption can work against kidney health, because the problem is not only the vegetable itself, it is the form, the portion, the preparation, the frequency, and the way an aging body handles potassium, sodium, oxalates, and repeated habits over time. That is why one root vegetable can look harmless on the plate, and still create trouble when it becomes a default. Before we get to the countdown, I want to give you a grocery rule you can use in about 8 seconds. Think. Potassium, package, pattern. Ask 3 questions. Is this naturally high in potassium for my situation? Has it been turned into a salty, packaged product? And am I eating it once in a while, or so often that it has become automatic? That is the rule. If a root vegetable is high for your lab needs, wrapped in sodium, or showing up again and again without thought, it deserves a closer look. Now let's get into the 4 root vegetables older adults should handle more carefully if they care about kidney balance, steady energy, swelling, blood pressure, and staying independent. This matters more after 50. Because many people are no longer eating from a perfectly blank slate. There may already be rising blood pressure, borderline blood sugar, mild ankle swelling, a history of kidney stones, or lab results that are starting to shift. Even people who feel mostly well may notice they do not recover the way they used to. A food that was easy at 35 may not fit the same way at 65. That does not mean you need fear. It means you need awareness. Kidney balance is often affected less by one dramatic meal, and more by the foods you repeat, because they seem wholesome, easy, and safe. That is where small food decisions become bigger decisions. And if you want a simple comment today, type the number 2 below. That lets me know you want more practical food guides like this for healthy aging and kidney awareness. Number 4. Parsnips. Parsnips sound old-fashioned in the best way. They feel rustic, home-cooked, almost medicinal. That is why they fool people. The issue is not that parsnips are toxic. The issue is that they can be high in potassium, and many older adults never think to count them that way. So they roast them, mash them, blend them into soups, or use them as a healthier side without noticing the portion. That matters if kidney function is lower, if potassium is on your radar, or if labs are starting to drift. A high potassium food is not automatically wrong for everyone. But when kidneys do not clear potassium as efficiently, the conversation changes. Parsnips also become easy to overdo in colder months when roasted vegetables turn into a nightly habit, and habits matter more than isolated serving. The smarter move is not panic. It is awareness. Use parsnips occasionally, not automatically, and keep the portion honest. A smaller scoop beside protein and lower potassium vegetables is very different from making parsnips the center of the plate every evening. Number 3. Cassava. Also called yucca. Cassava deserves more care than many people realize. Prepared properly, it can be part of a meal, but for kidney balance, it can become a problem for 2 reasons. First, it can bring a heavy potassium load, especially when the serving is large. Second, the way people often eat it is not simple boiled cassava. It is chips, fried sticks, or packaged snacks. That is where a vegetable starts acting like a processed habit. And after 50, processed habits hit differently. More sodium, more oil, more mindless eating, more pressure on blood pressure and fluid balance. Cassava also should be prepared correctly. That is not drama. It is just a reminder that traditional does not always mean casual. When people buy it frozen, fried, or heavily seasoned, they are usually no longer eating the simple version they imagine. So the correction is straightforward. If cassava is part of your family table, choose simpler preparations, keep portions realistic, and do not let cassava snacks fool you into thinking they are harmless. A root vegetable loses its advantage when it arrives with oil, salt, and crunch designed for overeating. Number 2. Beets. Beets carry one of the strongest health halos of any root vegetable. They are colorful, earthy, and linked with juice cleanses and natural detox language. That halo is exactly why they deserve caution. For some older adults, the issue is not potassium first. It is oxalates. Beets may deserve a closer look if you have a history of calcium oxalate kidney stones, the most common type. That does not make beets bad for everyone. It means the wrong person can hear superfood and build a daily habit that does not fit their body. The trap gets bigger when beets become juice. Juice makes it easy to consume more, faster, and more often, while still feeling virtuous. A beet salad once in a while is not the same as a large beet juice every morning. That is why beets land this high on the list. Not because they are forbidden, because they are trusted too easily. If beet juice has become part of your morning identity, that may be the signal to step back and rethink the pattern. Number 1. Potatoes. This is the root vegetable most people do not want to hear about, because potatoes feel basic, reliable, almost neutral. But potatoes can quietly do the most damage to kidney balance in real life, because they are so common, so easy to repeat, and so often eaten in the worst forms. A plain potato is one thing, but most people are not only eating plain potatoes, they are eating fries, chips, hash browns, instant mashed potatoes, salted roasted potatoes, fast food potatoes, and giant baked potatoes that can bring a large potassium load in one sitting. That is the trap. The vegetable becomes a vehicle for sodium, portion creep, and repetition. For adults with chronic kidney disease, high potassium labs, fruits de retention, or rising blood pressure, that pattern matters. And even without diagnosed kidney disease, packaged and restaurant potato products can pile on more sodium than many people realize. Potatoes rise to number 1 because they are the easiest root vegetable to underestimate. They appear at breakfast, lunch, dinner, and as a snack. That means the exposure is not occasional. It is constant. The smarter move is not to fear every potato. It is to stop letting potatoes dominate the routine. Watch the form, watch the portion, watch the frequency. If potatoes are the root vegetable you reach for without thinking, start there, right away. Even switching from daily potatoes to 2 or 3 times a week can help break the automatic pattern that bodies often tolerate less well. Now let's flip the script. Because once people hear that some root vegetables deserve caution, they assume the answer is to avoid all of them. That is not the goal. The goal is to replace harder choices with ones that are easier to portion, easier to repeat, and easier to fit into kidney-aware eating. Some options work because they are lighter, some work because they can stand in for potatoes, and some work because they add flavor, without pushing patterns that get adults into trouble. Here are 4 root vegetables to build around instead. Best number 4. Onions. Onions rarely get praised like a superfood, and that is part of their advantage. They add depth, sweetness, and satisfaction without asking you to eat a giant serving. That matters. A root or bulb vegetable does not always help kidney health by being nutritionally dramatic. Sometimes it helps by making the rest of the meal easier to control. Onions do that well. They build flavor, which means you may rely less on salty sauces, seasoning packets, or processed side dishes to make food taste satisfying. That is the hidden advantage. A vegetable that improves the whole meal can be more useful than one that steals the spotlight. Onions also fit real life. They go into eggs, soups, beans, stir-fries, salads, and roasted trays. They are affordable, easy to keep on hand, and simple to repeat. That makes them one of the most practical root vegetables for older adults who want healthier meals without making food feel flat. They also help with a problem many viewers know well. When food tastes dull, people reach for packaged sides. Onions can interrupt that. That is quiet help, but very real help. Best number 3. Radishes. Radishes are often overlooked because they seem too simple, too sharp, too small to matter. But for kidney-aware eating, that simplicity is one of their strengths. Radishes are crisp, refreshing, and naturally portion-friendly. They can add crunch to a plate without becoming the heavy center of the meal. That alone makes them useful for adults trying to move away from big starchy sides. They also work in more ways than many people expect. Raw in salads, sliced with tuna or eggs, roasted until mellow, added to grain bowls, even tucked beside sandwiches instead of chips. That is why radishes earn this spot. They create structure. They give your meal a vegetable presence, without pushing the kind of overload that happens when a side dish becomes the whole routine. They also travel well, which makes them useful for lunches, picnic plates, or simple afternoon snacks. That makes consistency easier. For years, for many viewers, radishes are not exciting, good, boring foods often make the best habits because they are less likely to turn into oversized portions or packaged snacks. Best number 2. Carrots. Carrots are familiar for a reason. They are steady, versatile, easy to understand, and when portions stay sensible, they are usually much easier to work into a balanced routine than the root vegetables on the warning side of this list. Carrots help because they can be used raw or cooked, snacked on or folded into meals, and paired with foods that slow you down, like hummus, yogurt dip, or a simple home-cooked dinner. That makes them a very practical choice for older adults who want a root vegetable that feels normal, without automatically pushing them toward fries, chips, or heavy restaurant sides. They are also one of the easiest vegetables to keep visible. A bowl in the fridge, a handful beside lunch, a small cooked portion with dinner. That kind of visibility matters because easy foods become repeat foods, and repeat foods shape health. Now, carrots are not magic, and for people on a very strict low-potassium plan, individual advice still matters. But in ordinary portions, for many older adults, carrots are far easier to fit into a smart routine than potatoes, cassava, or daily beet juice. They also satisfy the need to chew, which can help some people feel done with a meal instead of still searching for a snack. Best number 1. Turnips. If there is one root vegetable that deserves more respect in a kidney-aware kitchen, it is the turnip. Turnips rise to number 1 because they can do something very important. They can replace the comfort role that potatoes often play without copying the same pattern that gets people into trouble. Mashed turnips, roasted turnips, turnips in soup, turnips alongside a roast. They are flexible enough to feel familiar, but different enough to interrupt an old habit. That is the real win. The best food is often not the one with the fanciest reputation. It is the one that makes a better routine easier to repeat. Turnips also pair well with onion, garlic, herbs, pepper, and a little olive oil, which means they can taste comforting without needing to be loaded with sodium. And because they are not the default choice in most homes, people tend to eat them more deliberately. Deliberate eating is powerful. It brings attention back to the plate. That is why turnips finish at number 1. They are not trendy, they are useful. They support a swap, not just a theory. And after 50, useful usually beats trendy every single time. And usefulness is what keeps habits alive. So here is the full takeaway. After 50, the smartest question is not, which root vegetable is always good or always bad? The better question is, which one? In which form? In which portion? And how often? Fits my body right now? Be more careful with parsnips if potassium is already on your radar. Watch cassava closely when it shows up as fries, chips, or a large starchy side. Treat beets with more caution if you have a history of calcium oxalate stones. And be especially alert with potatoes, because they are the easiest root vegetable to repeat in oversized, salty, processed forms. Then build more of your routine around onions, radishes, carrots, and especially turnips. Remember the 3-word check: potassium, package, pattern. Those 3 words can save you from turning a comforting vegetable into a daily kidney burden. And one more important point before we finish. This video is a healthy aging guide, not personal kidney advice. Some people with early kidney disease may not need broad limits, while others may need tighter ones based on potassium, dialysis, stone type, medications, or lab results. If you have chronic kidney disease, a history of kidney stones, swelling, heart failure, or you have been told your potassium runs high, use this video as a conversation starter with your doctor or kidney dietitian, not as a one-size-fits-all rule. So tell me in the comments. Root check. If you are going to use the 3-word rule this week, or write turnip, carrot, radish, or onion for the one you want to add first, and share this with a spouse, sibling, parent, or friend who still assumes every root vegetable is automatically safe. One better swap, repeated often, can protect comfort, confidence, and daily independence longer. Stay steady, stay aware, and I will see you in the next video. Most people think a root vegetable is automatically one of the safest foods on the table. It grows in the ground, it looks natural, it shows up in soups, stews, roasts, and home cooking, so it feels comforting, familiar. But after 50, and especially after 60, that assumption can work against kidney health, because the problem is not only the vegetable itself, it is the form, the portion, the preparation, the frequency, and the way an aging body handles potassium, sodium, oxalates, and repeated habits over time. That is why one
Potassium,
root vegetable can look
package,
harmless on the plate
pattern.
and still create trouble when it becomes a default. Before we get to the countdown,
This
I want
fresh
to give you a
carrot provides
grocery rule you
natural
can use in
vitamins,
about
but
8
this
seconds.
package offers
Think.
a synthesized
Potassium,
version with added
package,
sodium.
pattern. Ask 3 questions.
The
Is
red
this
particles
naturally high in
indicate high
potassium
levels
for
of
my
sodium in
situation?
these
Has it been
processed
turned
snacks
into a salty,
compared to the fresh
packaged
vegetables?
product? And am I eating it once in a while, or so often that it has become automatic? That is the rule. If a root vegetable is high for your lab needs, wrapped in sodium, or showing up again and again without thought, it deserves a closer look. Now let's get into the 4 root vegetables older adults should handle more carefully if they care about kidney balance, steady energy, swelling, blood pressure,